Digital intelligence, of course, has applications into every field. And so it's going to be used by every company, every industry, every country. In that way, it's foundational, and therefore it's part of infrastructure. What is new about AI from a computer science perspective is that the way computing was done in the past was largely retrieval-based computing. Mm-hmm. Somebody typed in a story, or somebody created a piece of art, or came up with 4 versions of a digital ad, or it's all pre-built by somebody, which is then using a system to retrieve the appropriate version for you. It's a retrieval-based computing model. Hadoop and many of the frameworks and operating systems of the past, all designed to retrieve the appropriate information for you. But today, software is going to be generated in real time. It's generative. Based on the context, based on the circumstance, based on who you are, based on the problem you asked, based on your prompt, it will generate unique content for you. Every single time, for everybody, it's unique. When you use Grok, every time you use it is different. Just based on the right, based on the prompt that you give it, and based on the circumstance, and so therefore, it used to be retrieval based. Today, it's generative, and if it's generative, then and every time is different, then you need AI factories all over the world to generate the content in real time, which is the reason why you need AI factories. And this is a unique way of doing computation, but the benefit, of course, is that everything isn't preconceived and pre-documented, and it's contextually sensible and therefore intelligent.
So AI factories and robotics, and we heard it yesterday from His Royal Highness, his vision, how to augment our workforce with roughly tens of millions of robotics to be able to infuse the next wave of productivity and progress. But this scares a lot of folks here when it comes to the future of jobs. So let's hear about your thoughts, Elon and Jensen, on that.
Sure. Well, if you say like in the long term, where will things end up? Long term, I don't know what long term is. Maybe it's 10, 20 years, something like that. For me, that's long term. My prediction is that work will be optional.
Optional.
Optional. So
we'll take that.
Yeah. I mean, it'll be like playing sports or a video game or something like that. If you want to work, in the same way, like you can go to the store and just buy some vegetables, or you could grow vegetables in your backyard. It's much harder to grow vegetables in your backyard, but some people still do it because they like growing vegetables. That will be what work is like, optional. Now, between now and then, there's actually a lot of work to get to that point. Mm-hmm. I always recommend people read Ian Banks' culture books to get a sense for what a probable positive AI future is like. And interestingly, in those books, money is doesn't exist. It's kind of interesting. And my guess is, if you go out long enough, assuming there's a continued improvement in AI and robotics, which seems likely, the money will stop being relevant at some point in the future. Now, there will still be constraints on power, like electricity and mass. The fundamental physics elements will still be constraints. But I think at some point, currency becomes irrelevant.
Jensen, any thoughts?
By the way, the NVIDIA earnings call is later today.
And by the way, since currency is relevant.
Cheers.
Elon just wants to share with you some breaking news. The two of us would like to share some breaking news. Let's see. I would say there's different horizons you could look at. Everybody's jobs will be different. I think that's for sure. How the students learn will be different. How people do their work will be different, obviously, because a lot of the things that we do mundanely or arduously or very difficultly are going to be done very simply. And so we're going to be more productive from that sense. One of the things that I will say is that for most people or a company, if your life becomes more productive, and if the things that you're doing with great difficulty become simpler, it is very likely, because you have so many ideas, you'll have more time to go pursue things. It is my guess that Elon will be busier as a result of AI. I'm going to be busier as a result of AI. And the reason for that is because we have so many ideas we want to pursue, so many things that we still have in our backlog inside our company that we can go pursue. If we were more productive, we can get to those things faster. And so in the near term, I would say that there's every evidence that we will be more productive and yet still be busier because we have so many ideas. One thing that I will say, give you some evidence, is that, and I was just telling Elon about this earlier, radiology, for example, has largely been converted to AI-driven radiology, and there's some really great companies doing that. And the surprising thing is the prediction that all radiologists would be the first jobs to go was exactly the opposite. The trend shows that there are more radiologists being hired now as a result of AI. And the reason for that, if you take a step back, it's because the goal of a radiologist is not to study the images. The goal of a radiologist is to diagnose a disease. Now the studying of the images became so productive, they could study more images, study more modalities, spend more time with the patients. And as a result, they were actually accepting more patients. We're doing more radiology all around the world. We're doing a better job with diagnosing disease. And so that's kind of the near-term outcome of AI and productivity. And we'll see what happens long-term. You know, when currency doesn't matter anymore, just, you know, let me know right before.
You'll see it coming. You'll see it coming.
We text often, so just
yeah, we do.
Yeah, just text it out.
Well,
yeah, let me know.
I kind of agree with both of you, because if you look at every technological trend, every general purpose technology has been net new positive for the globe, for humanity, and so forth. Now, they told me I have time for two last questions. So last night at the dinner, I got a number of questions because it seems that the schedule leaked. And everybody was giving me hints about the last two questions I'm going to do. So the first one was for you, Elon. And there's a big one for you, Jensen. So prepare for that one. AI in space. Is that possible?
Yes. If civilization continues, which it probably will, then AI in space is inevitable. You know, I always have to preface that, you know. We shouldn't take civilization for granted. We need to make sure to take care to ensure that civilization has an upward arc. I mean, any student of history knows that civilization does not always have an upward arc, and in fact, civilizations have life cycles. So hopefully we are in a strong upward arc. I think we are for now, but we don't want to take that for granted or be complacent. But the way to think of AI in space is that in order to achieve any meaningful percentage of a Kardashev 2 scale civilization, where you're using even a millionth of the sun's energy, you must have solar-powered AI satellites in deep space. So that once you realize, once you think in terms of a Kardashev 2 scale civilization, which is what percentage of the sun's energy are you turning into useful work, then it becomes obvious that space is overwhelmingly what matters. Overwhelmingly, the sun only receives roughly 1/2 billionth of the Earth only receives roughly 1/2 billionth of the sun's energy. So if you want to have something that is, say, 1,000,000 times more energy than Earth could possibly produce, you must go into space. So this is where it's kind of handy to have a space company, I guess. Sell the book.
Easier to cool chips in space, too.
Yes.
Easier to cool chips in space. Yeah.
Yes, there's definitely no water in space, so you're going to have to do something that doesn't involve water.
Just hang out.
Well, it's you just got to radiate.
That's right.
So my estimate is that actually that the cost of electricity, like the cost effectiveness of AI in space will be overwhelmingly better than AI on the ground. So far, long before you exhaust potential energy sources on Earth, long before, meaning like I think even perhaps in the 4 or 5 year time frame, the lowest cost way to do AI compute will be with solar-powered AI satellites. So I'd say not more than 5 years from now.
Wow.
And just look at the supercomputers we're building together. Let's say each one of the racks is 2 tons. Out of that 2 tons, 1.95 of it is probably for cooling.
Right.
Just imagine how tiny that little supercomputer is, right? Each one of these GB300 racks will just be a little tiny thing.
And just electricity generation is already becoming a challenge. So if you start doing any kind of scaling for both electricity generation and cooling, you realize, okay, space is incredibly compelling. So, like, let's say you wanted to do, I don't know, 200 or 300 gigawatts per year of AI compute. Yeah. It's very difficult to do that on Earth. The U.S. average electricity usage, last time I checked, was around 460 gigawatts per year average usage. So something like, say, at 300, if you're doing 300 gigawatts a year, that would be like 2/3 of U.S. electricity production per year. Yeah. There's no way you're building power plants at that level. And then if you take it up to, say, 1 terawatt per year, impossible. Yeah. Like, you have to do that in space. There just is no way to do 1 terawatt per year on Earth. And in space, you've got continuous solar. You've got you actually don't need batteries because it's always sunny in space.
That's right, exactly.
And the solar panels actually become cheaper because you don't need glass or framing, and the cooling is just radiative. So that's why I think
that's the dream.
Yes,
that's the dream.
So Jensen, everybody last night was asking me, and I'm mindful it's earnings call for you today. So I'm going to say this delicately. Everybody has been asking me to ask you, are we going to have an AI bubble?
That's the last question. All right, no. All right, let me just tell you what we see. Okay, so I think it's really important when you look at what's happening around the world and go back to first principles of what's happening in computer science and computing. There are 3 things that's happening. The first thing is that we all know that Moore's law has run its course, and the amount of demand for computing versus the amount of computation we can get out of general purpose computing is really challenging. And so the world's been moving to accelerated computing for some time. We've been pushing this now for over 20 years. Let me give you one statistic. I was just at supercomputing. 6 years ago, CPUs were 90% of the world's supercomputers, top 500 supercomputers. 6 years ago. This year, less than 15%. Went from 90% to 10%, and meanwhile, accelerated computing went from the other way, 10% to now 90%. Okay, so you're seeing that inflection point, the transition in high-performance computing from general-purpose computing to accelerated computing. Well, one of the most intensive computation things that the world does in cloud is data processing. Several $100 billion of computation is done on just raw data processing. It has nothing to do with AI. Just SQL processing, data frames, everybody's names, address, their sex, their age, where they live, how much money they make. All of that sits into a data frame, and that data frame drives the world today, whether it's in banking or whether it's in credit cards or, of course, e-commerce and everything from ad recommendation, and everything is driven off of that data frame. That data frame costs hundreds of billions of dollars to go compute. And so that's the number one thing, end of Moore's law. The second thing is generative AI. The most important application of the last 15 years is called REXs, recommender systems. How do we know what information to recommend to us in a social feed? How do you know what ad to recommend to somebody, what book to recommend, what movie to recommend? The internet is so gigantic without a recommender system that a little tiny of us will have no chance of ever seeing the right information. That Rexus is the engine of the internet today. That's going generative AI. It used to be running on CPUs, now it runs on GPUs. Which then says the third thing, if you just look at those two applications, many of the internet companies can build an enormous number of GPU supercomputers just doing that. Of course, then it creates the third opportunity on top of it, which is agentic AI. This is Grok, and this is OpenAI, this is Anthropic, this is Gemini. Agentic AI sits on top of that. But don't forget to think about what is happening underneath what everybody sees as AI today. There's a whole movement of computing from general purpose computing to accelerated computing. And that, if you take that into consideration, you'll come to the conclusion that in fact, what is left over to fuel that revolutionary agentic AI is not only substantially less than you thought, and all of it justified.
Super excited to be here with Dario and Jensen. What both of you are doing, NVIDIA at the silicon layer and Anthropic at the cognition layer, is shaping what every developer and every organization will be able to build on going forward. On our side, we have been scaling NVIDIA across this fungible Azure fleet at the speed of light, something that Jensen's been talking to me about for multiple years now, and we're continuing to set pace, including with the AI Super Factory we announced just last week. And we've been deepening our partnership with Anthropic as well, incorporating their models across the entire Copilot family. And today, I'm excited to share that we are taking another step. We're increasingly going to be customers of each other. We will use Anthropic models. They will use our infrastructure, and we'll go to market together to help our customers realize the value of AI. This announcement encompasses four key things. First, customers of Microsoft Foundry will be able to access Anthropic's Claude models. Second, we are continuing access for Claude across our Copilot family. Third, Anthropic is committing to Azure capacity. And finally, NVIDIA and Anthropic are also establishing a partnership to support Anthropic's future growth. For us, this is all about deepening our commitment to bringing the best infrastructure, model choice, and applications to our customers. And of course, this all builds on the partnership we have with OpenAI, which remains a critical partner for Microsoft and OpenAI and our customers, and provides more innovation and choice. With that, Dario, why don't you tell us a little more about the partnership, what this partnership means to Anthropic?
Yes, in terms of Microsoft, I think, as you mentioned, Satya, both of us believe in choice, and we're excited to bring our models as a choice to Microsoft Azure, and Anthropic will be the first model that is available on all three of the biggest clouds. Second, Microsoft has a reputation as a strong enterprise company, and Anthropic does it as well. So we have the opportunity to work together, to go to market together, and to provide intelligence to the world together. And we're excited to kind of accelerate the diffusion of this technology as the technology continues to improve. And finally, we're very excited to get additional capacity that we can use both to train our models, to support Microsoft first-party products, and to sell together. And that brings me to the NVIDIA part of it. We are very excited to add substantial support and substantial use of NVIDIA's accelerators for use by Anthropic. NVIDIA has led the way in this field, in many ways has helped make this entire AI boom possible. We think this is going to be just the beginning of a very long partnership. We are excited to work together to co-optimize models together, starting with Blackwell and then moving on to Vera Rubin. We're excited to announce up to gigawatt of capacity, and that's just for now. That's just where we're starting. And so, we're very excited to continue that, to continue the co-optimization, to further build out NVIDIA's already incredible ecosystem.
That's fantastic. Well said, Dario. And one of our core beliefs is that you can't make progress just in one layer of the stack. You have to advance every layer, silicon, systems, models, applications, while optimizing effectively for all the things that customers care about, right? COGS, latency, performance. And one of the things that we're also establishing today is this new partnership, as you described, between NVIDIA and Anthropic. So Jensen, maybe you should talk a little bit about sort of what you all are excited about.
Thanks, Satya.
NVIDIA's DNA is to build the most advanced computing systems in the world and to accelerate the most challenging workloads in the world on the most important platforms in the world. And this conference call right here embodies that very thing. This is a dream come true for us. We've admired the work of Anthropic and Dario for a long time. And this is the first time we are going to deeply partner with Anthropic to accelerate Claude. I can't wait to go accelerate Claude. The work that Anthropic has done, the seminal work in AI safety, the advances of Claude Code, the engineers of NVIDIA love Claude Code. The fact that you can go and literally refactor your code for you, it's pretty an amazing thing. And the work on MCP, the Model Context Protocol, has completely revolutionized the agentic AI landscape. And so the contributions of Anthropic, the advanced research that is done there, the incredible researchers, the incredible infrastructure team that works at Anthropic that makes it possible for you to scale up to what you have already done is really quite phenomenal. And now your business is on a rocket ship. It's just scaling so incredibly. And so I can't wait to go accelerate Claude on Grace Blackwell with NVLink. I'm really, really hoping for an order of magnitude speed up, and that's going to help you scale even faster, drive down token economics, and really make it possible for us to spread AI everywhere. And so I'm really, really super excited about that. Now, the work that we've done with Microsoft over the years, Satya, is broad and deep. I mean, it's incredible, all the things that we do. The work that we've done to shift left all of our engineering so that at the moment we have new technology, it appears on Azure. Notice the scale that we've now already achieved with Grace Blackwell 200 and 300, the number of systems that are already out there helping researchers pioneer the next frontier in AI. Really fantastic work there. But we do everything from data processing to search to image recognition to fraud detection to, right, all kinds of stuff that we're doing, from classical computing to classical ML to generative AI to agentic AI. The work that we're doing just spans the entire range of technology. But what's really, really incredible is, of course, Microsoft has the world's best enterprise go-to-market. This is the next giant frontier, enterprise and industrial AI. That's where, as you know, the vast majority of the world's economy is. And in order for us to get to every single enterprise, that enterprise go-to-market takes decades to build up. It is, it's not one of those things that's just because you put it on the cloud, you're going to be able to serve the world's enterprise. The enterprise go-to-market is very complicated. And this is where the two of us have such great harmony, because NVIDIA's computing is in every enterprise. And we're in every enterprise in every single country. Now, this partnership of the three of us will be able to bring Claude to every enterprise, to every industry around the world. And so this is a really exciting time.
I'll close with this. As an industry, we really need to move beyond any type of zero-sum narrative or winner-take-all hype. What's required now is the hard work of building broad, durable capabilities together so that this technology can deliver real, tangible, local success for every country, every sector, and every customer. The opportunity is simply too big to approach any other way. Jensen and Dario, any last thoughts on this?
I'm just excited to, take a large number of chips and use it to serve our mutual enterprise customers together to make the smartest models, the models that run the fastest for the lowest possible cost.
Jensen?
I think the world is just barely realizing where we are in the AI journey. We're seeing three scaling laws happening at the same time. Pre-training is scaling incredibly well still. Post-training, the more compute you give it, the smarter the AI. And then, of course, inference time scaling, test time scaling. The more the AI thinks, the higher the quality of answer. And so we're now at a point with AI where it is very clear that the more compute we give it, the more cost-effective compute we give it, the smarter the tokens, the smarter the AI is going to be. And the smarter the AI, the more adoption, both in the new applications that integrate these AI APIs and the more frequently, how more frequently you use it. And so the quality of these AI models now have really reached an inflection point. And so we've got these two simultaneous, exponentially increasing compute demand. And I guess the thing that's really great is, they're going to need a lot more Azure compute resources, and they're going to need a lot more GPUs. And we're just delighted to partner with you, Dario, to bring AI to the world.
Absolutely.
Now, thank you so much, Dario and Jensen. I'm really looking forward to everything that we're going to build together, and more importantly, how customers can benefit from all this innovation and really thrive with their business and their outcomes. So thank you all for joining today.
Thank you.
Thank you.
And can you give us a sense of the scale? Clearly, the metric that people kind of go to is the market cap. These are extraordinary numbers for you, 3.5 trillion, NVIDIA at 5 trillion, the sheer amount of investment going in. Give us a sense of scale.
One way to think about the scale is what we are all investing in capital to build out the infrastructure that's needed for artificial intelligence. Maybe 4 years ago, Google was spending less than $30 billion per year. This year, that number is going to be over $90 billion. And if you collectively add what all the companies are doing, we have well over $1 trillion of investment going in building the infrastructure for this moment. And one way I think about it is in the next couple of years, we'll end up building what we probably built in the past 10 to 20 years. So hopefully,
just in a couple of years.
That's right. So that gives you the scale at which this is ramping up.
Now, you mentioned some of those phases of technological advancement that happened with much market excitement as well. And the obvious question is around the whole of this country, around the whole of the world right now, is it a bubble?
Look, there are two ways of thinking about the question. I look at the actual progress we are making in terms of the model capabilities, and the progress is palpably exciting. And people are using this, and we are deploying it in our products. Consumers are excited about using it. We are giving it to companies. They are using it to make their companies better. So you see real demand, and we are constrained in our ability to serve that demand. So, and given the potential of this technology, the excitement is very rational. It's also true when we go through these investment cycles, there are moments we overshoot, right, collectively as an industry. We can look back at the internet right now. There was clearly a lot of excess investment, but none of us would question whether the internet was profound or did it drive a lot of impact. It's fundamentally changed how we work digitally as a society. I expect AI to be the same. So I think it's both rational, and there are elements of irrationality through a moment like this.
I mean, you just described your excitement about Google's kind of hardware, which is the key scarce resource. I guess, would your argument be, I guess it would be, that whatever happens, whatever appears to be a frothy, exotic deal from one of your competitors, Google will be immune from any bursting of the bubble because of your, spectrum of investments across all technologies?
No company is going to be immune, including us. If you overinvest, we'll have to work through that phase. But, we are, I think we are better positioned. For many years, we have taken a deeply differentiated approach to how we've approached AI. One of the first things I did as CEO was to shift the company to what I called as an AI-first approach. And part of that was doing all the parts of what it takes to build great AI technology. So we call it a full stack approach. You can think of it as a soup to nuts approach, all the way from the underlying physical infrastructure to the research that you need to do to drive this technology forward, to deploying it in products and platforms, be it search, be it in YouTube, be it in Android, and so on, right? And so we have taken the deep approach. So we are able to invest at scale and make it work across all these products and businesses. And I think so we are better positioned to take a long-term view and approach this moment.
Okay. Well, okay, let's take that, and then let's try and sum up, if you like, the ultimate power of the tools you have built for people at home. How effective could it be? Could an AI agent do your job at some point?
Look, I think where we are is right now, you can interact with this AI, ask questions, go back and forth, and have these intelligent exchanges on many, many topics. I think the next step in the next 12 months, you will see the evolution being that they are able to do more complex tasks for you. So that's where it gets really interesting. I have to go shop something, I have to buy a birthday gift for my spouse, and can I ask this chatbot to go do that, right? So I think that kind of what we call agentic experiences is what we are all excited about. So down the line, that means there are moments it can help you make a decision, right? Like, it could be, should I invest in this stock? Ask the question. Or my doctor is recommending a treatment, and how should I think about the pros and cons of the treatment? So those are all real, tangible use cases. So I think there is still work to be done to unlock those capabilities, but that's the journey which has been so exciting to see.
Okay, so still CEOs are safe in their jobs.
I think what a CEO does is maybe one of the easier things to maybe for AI to do one day.
But the whole point of the value and productivity kind of offer to companies that are buying all your goods and your services is to automate many human tasks, is it not?
Let me put it this way, right? I think people today are juggling many things, right? And people are overloaded. We've always had, back in the history, it could be a dishwasher coming to your home. I remember growing up, when we got our first refrigerator in the home, how much it radically changed my mom's life, right? And so you can view it as it automating some, but it freed her up to do other things, right? So you are going to have, let's take an example of a radiologist. The number of scans people are getting is growing year on year. And the number of images per scan is also rising pretty significantly. How do you help a radiologist cope up with this increased demand? Maybe an AI tool can help that way. So I think that's what you will see more or less.
I get it. You want to focus on the win-wins, but it's many people, many aspirational middle classes across the West are thinking, hang on a minute, it's affecting lawyers' jobs, it's affecting creative industries, it's affecting accounting jobs, it's affecting journalism too, it's affecting the media in general. So, and they're surprised by it, and they're wondering, do you know which jobs are going to be safer? Have you got an idea?
Two things. One is, first of all, look, I think with any, I said many years ago, AI is the most profound technology humanity is ever working on. And it has potential for extraordinary benefits. And we will have to work through societal disruptions.
Right,
and you are highlighting, it'll end up creating new opportunities. Yeah. As an example, I think anybody, just like YouTube has done, anybody will be able to create content. You could be a high school student, and a few years down, maybe envision a feature-length movie and make it, right? That's extraordinary. So it will create new opportunities. It will evolve and transition certain jobs, right? And people will need to adapt. And then there will be areas where it will impact some jobs. So as a society, I think we need to be having those conversations. And part of it is, how do you develop this technology responsibly and give society time to adapt as we absorb this technology? I think these are all very, very important and fair questions.
Just very practically, parents don't know what to advise their kids anymore, just to ride out this AI wave. Give us some tips.
Based on what I see, I wouldn't change anything of how we've always thought. I think, I think there's going to be a wide variety of disciplines which will end up mattering. I would encourage the next generation to embrace the technology, learn to use it in the context of what you do. And I think people who learn to adopt and adapt to AI will do better. It doesn't matter whether you want to be a teacher, a doctor, all those professions will be around, but the people who will do well in each of those professions are people who learn how to use these tools.
Okay. So all of the hopes, the hype, the valuations, the social benefit of this transformation you've just described, is built on a central assumption that the technology functions, that it works. Let me propose one simple test. Of Gemini, which is your booming ChatGPT kind of competitor, is it accurate always? Does it tell the truth?
Look, we are working hard from a scientific standpoint to ground it in real-world information, right? And there are areas, part of what we've done with Gemini is we've brought the power of Google search. So it uses Google search as a tool to try and to give answers more accurately. But there are moments, these AI models fundamentally have a technology by which they're predicting what's next, and they are prone to errors.
Yeah. You know some of the examples. There was an example of glue as a pizza ingredient, a sitting senator wrongly accused of assault. This is bad, isn't it?
Today, I think we take pride in the amount of work we put in to give as accurate information as possible.
Right.
But the current state-of-the-art AI technology is prone to some errors.
Right.
This
You
is why people also use Google search, and we have other products which are more grounded in providing accurate information, right? And so, but the same tools are helpful if you want to creatively write something.
Okay.
Right. So you have to learn to use these tools and for what they are good at.
Yeah.
And not blindly trust everything they say.
Okay, don't blindly trust. But let me suggest to you that you have a special responsibility because this whole type of model, transformer model, the T in ChatGPT, was invented here under you, and you know that it's a probability. And I just wonder if you accept the end result of all this fantastic investment is that information is less reliable.
I think if you only construct systems standalone, and you only rely on that would be true.
Yeah.
Which is why I think we have to make the information ecosystem has to be much richer than just having AI technology being the sole product in it.
Sure, truth matters. Yeah,
truth matters. Journalism matters.
Yeah.
All of the surrounding things we have today matters, right? So, if you're a student, you're talking to your teacher. If as a consumer, you're going to a doctor, you want to trust your doctor.
Of course.
Yeah, all of that
You want
matters.
to trust the little summaries that come at the top. Okay, but listen, and the scale of the AI build-out you've just described so vividly is creating another trade-off, not just for you, but for humanity on energy. I think this is an opportunity to be frank, Mr. Pichai, with the world. Is there a new calculus now? Is the build-out of AI more important than climate?
Over time, I don't think this doesn't need to be a trade-off or a zero-sum game. I think one of the things I'm excited about, because the energy needs through this transformation is so immense, we, as well as others, we are investing to develop new sources of energy. We just finished signing the largest corporate purchase for nuclear fusion energy with Commonwealth Fusion Systems. We have many purchase agreements for energy from small modular nuclear reactors. We're using geothermal energy in our data centers. So the amount of dollars, R&D dollars, capital investments going in these new sources of energy, I think will actually accelerate. So you're right, AI is dramatically increasing demand for energy in a way that the current systems can't fully cope up. But that is driving extraordinary investments in solar, in battery technology, in nuclear technology, and other sources. So I think, I am, as a technologist, I'm optimistic through this moment that we will have abundant sources of renewable energy in the future.
Demis and Josh, welcome to Hard Fork.
Great to be here.
So 2 years ago, Sundar Pichai told us that Bard, rest in peace, was a souped-up Civic that was in a race with more powerful cars. What kind of car is Gemini 3?
That's a good one. Dennis, do you want to take it?
Well, I hope it's a bit faster than a Honda Civic. I don't really think of it in terms of cars. Maybe it's one of those cool drag racers.
Yeah. So people are really excited about this model. We have been hearing from folks that have been sort of early testing it. Obviously, you guys have shown off a lot of the benchmarks, very impressive. What can Gemini do on a concrete level that previous AI models couldn't?
Well, I'll jump in. Maybe a couple of things that stand out. One, we're starting to see this model really excel on reasoning and being able to think many steps at the same time. Sometimes models in the past would lose their train of thought, lose track. This one's way better at that. The other thing you'll see tomorrow as well is all kinds of new generative interfaces. This is our best model yet at being able to create new types of interfaces. It gives people really a custom sort of design and sort of answer to their questions. And then maybe the third thing I would say is we've put a lot of investment in coding itself. And so a lot of the coding examples, you'll see some new products coming out, like Google Anti-Gravity will also kind of showcase that.
There's been some discussion that for average users, the chat use case can feel solved, that sort of average users of products like Gemini kind of almost can't even think of a question to ask it that will generate something that feels meaningfully different from what they were able to get in the last model. To what extent does that feel true to you in Gemini 3? And to what extent do you think average folks are really going to notice a difference?
Yeah, one of the things I guess we're seeing in some of the testing, and Demis, feel free to chime in too, is I think these are really, for us, this is a model that it's more concise, it's more expressive, it starts to present information in a way that's much easier to understand. And I think for most people, that's going to be a big immediate effect. And then I think what starts to get interesting is how these models start to interact with other types of information. So we talk a lot about how students are going to be able to learn with this model, or even how this model can connect to other types of data you might have in other Google products with your permission. These are the ways I think we're starting to show kind of it's going beyond just the standard text kind of Q&A back and forth.
Yeah, I think I'd add to that, just like, its general reliability on things is incredibly, you'll notice that when you use it. I think also we work quite hard on the persona, which we call it internally, like the style of it. I think it's more succinct. I think it's more to the point. It's helpful. I feel like it's got a better style about it. I find it more pleasant to brainstorm with and use. And then I think, I think there are various things where there's almost a step change. I feel like it's crossed a sort of threshold of usefulness on things like vibe coding. I've been getting back into my games programming. I'm gonna set myself some projects over Christmas on that, because I feel like it's actually got to a point where it's incredibly useful and capable on front end and things like this that perhaps previous versions weren't so good at.
Demis, the last time we had you on the show in May, you said that you think we're 5 to 10 years away from AGI and that there might be a few significant breakthroughs needed between here and there. Has Gemini 3 and observing how good it is changed any of those timelines, or does it incorporate any of those breakthroughs that you thought would be necessary?
No, I think it's sort of dead on track. If you see what I mean, we're really happy with this progress. I think it's an absolutely amazing model. And is right on track of what I was expecting and the trajectory we've been on actually for the last couple of years since the beginning of Gemini, which I think has been the fastest progress of anybody in the industry. And I think we're going to continue doing that trajectory, and we expect that to continue. But on top of that, I still think there'll be one or two more things that are required to really get the consistency across the board that you'd expect from a general intelligence, and also improvements still on reasoning, on memory, and perhaps things like world model ideas that you also know we're working on with Simmer and Genie. They all build on top of Gemini, but extend it in various ways. And I think some of those ideas are going to be required as well to fully solve physical intelligence and things like that. So I'm both are true. I'm really happy with the progress of Gemini 3. I think people are going to be pretty pleasantly surprised. But it's on track of what we were expecting the progress to be. And I think that means still 5 to 10 years with one or two more perhaps breakthroughs required.
You mentioned Gemini 3's style. There's been a lot of discussion recently about AI companions, the relationships people are developing with them. How do you think about Gemini 3's personality, and what kind of relationship do you want users to have with it?
I would say in the app itself, Casey, we're really interested in we see it on the team a lot as almost like a tool, or it's something you're using to kind of work through and kind of cut through your day. And so whether it's if it's helping on different types of questions you have or helping you create things, that's really where we see it really kind of excelling and kind of the direction we want to see it. I think if you zoom out, if you look at Gemini or some of our other projects like Notebook LM or Flow, we're really kind of trying to think through how does AI really be this superpower, kind of super tool in your toolbox that you can use, whether it's for writing or researching or creating films or whatnot. And so that's really more where we're focused. I think over time, we're really interested on the team to be able to track things like how many tasks did we help you complete in your day? That's a new type of metric that I think we get excited about, and sort of a way that the original sort of Google search worked. You would come to it, you would sort of try to get an answer or sent to a page and sort of move on from there.
Well, that all sounds very good and responsible, but I'm wondering about all the viral engagement you're leaving on the table by not making this thing an erotic companion. Big oversight.
No comment.
Some of your competitors have been very nervous in the days and weeks leading up to Gemini 3. I think they've started hearing the same rumblings that we have about this model being quite good. And maybe the narrative shifting from sort of Google playing catch up in AI to now sort of being on top of the race, or at least in a leadership position there. Do you feel like Google is ahead in the AI race right now?
Look, it's as you guys know very well, it's a ferocious, competitive environment, probably the most competitive there's ever been. So one can never, it's almost really the only important thing is your rate of progress, right, from where you are. And that's what we're focusing on, and we're very happy about that. I don't really see it as a sort of like, we're back in the lead or something like that. We've always pioneered the research part of this. I think it's like getting into our groove in making sure that downstream reflected in all of our products. And I think we're really getting into our stride there. I think you saw that actually last I.O., I would say. And we're getting better at that, like with GDM being sort of the engine room of Google. And of course, there's a Gemini app, there's Notebook LM, these AI first products, but there's also powering up all these amazing existing Google products, whether that's Maps, YouTube, Android, search, of course, with AI first features, and actually in some cases reimagining things from an AI first perspective with, often Gemini under the hood. And that's going amazingly well. And I think we're only midway through that evolution, but it's very exciting to see how, much value and excitement our users are getting when they see each of those new features. And, for example, Workspace and Gmail and so on, it's almost endless possibilities there. So we're really excited about that, as well as all of these AI first products that we're also imagining and prototyping.
We had a historian on the show last week who was using an unreleased Google model in AI Studio, and it had sort of blown his mind with how it was able to transcribe these very old documents and reason correctly about, what kind of, what was the measurements of the sugar in this sort of 1800s fur trade in Canada. Do you think you can tell us once and for all, was this man using Gemini 3?
Not sure about that one.
Okay.
I will say the model is, though, quite amazing at making these connections. And I don't know if the historian was using kind of photos of old documents or diaries or whatnot.
Yes, that's what he was doing.
Yeah,
okay, it's very good at this. Someone like me who has pretty poor handwriting, you could take a page of notes and it'll kind of take that and run with it with no problem, no sweat. So...
You mentioned that on this call that you're going to be integrating this into search in the AI mode that sort of is a side tab on the main Google search engine. Does that mean that you found a way to serve this model more efficiently and cheaply than previous models?
I think we're always on the cutting. I feel like the thing we do really well, apart from the overall performance of our models and getting better and better at that, is the efficiency of our models and the distillation techniques and many other techniques that we sort of created and pioneered that we're now putting to use. Obviously, it's necessary for us because we have extreme use cases of things like AI overviews and others that we have to serve billions of users. And then, of course, some of our cloud enterprise customers really appreciate that efficiency, cost efficiency too. So we've always tried to be on this Pareto frontier of cost to performance. And wherever you want to be on that frontier, if you value performance most, or if you value cost the most, then there'll be one of the models in the model family for you. So of course, we're only announcing Pro today, but we are also working on the other family of models for the 3.0 era. So you'll see a lot more about that pretty soon.
Yeah. It seems like every time we see the release of a new frontier model, we get to revisit the discussion about scaling laws. And are we beginning to see diminishing returns? And I can predict a few Twitter accounts that will probably have something to say about this over the next few days. So I thought I would just sort of ask you, before we have that discourse, how are you guys thinking about that in relation to Gemini 3?
Yeah, we're very happy with the progress Gemini 3 represents over 2.5. So I would say, sort of actually referencing to what we discussed earlier, that the progress is basically what we were expecting and on track, and we're really pleased with it. But that's not to say that it's like there is some kind of diminishing returns. People, when they hear diminishing returns, they think of, is it zero or exponential, right? But there's also in between. So there can be diminishing, it's not like gonna like exponentially double with every era, but it's not, but it's still well worth doing, right? And extremely good return on that investment. So I think we're in that era. And then, you know, as I said, my suspicion is, although we'll see, is that still one or two more breakthroughs are required, research breakthroughs are required to get all the way to AGI. But in the meantime, you're going to obviously need as scaled as possible versions of these foundation models, multimodal foundation models that we're building today, and still seeing great progress on.
Which of the many benchmarks that you showed off today do you feel like is going to matter most to the average user?
Oh, that's a good question. I think most people don't look at the benchmarks as closely as we do, but the benchmarks are always a proxy, right? So you look at something like cracking the 1500 ELO on LM Arena. That's great. But what really matters is kind of the user satisfaction in the products too. And I think what's been encouraging to us is these are still moving in the same direction. They're good proxies for each other. And so ultimately, I think we'll put out all the benchmarks and we're very proud of them and they represent amazing progress. But you also have to be able to translate that into product experiences that matter. And so we try to do both with every one of these releases.
Any new dangerous capabilities or safety concerns that come with the increased power of the model?
I think, well, we've taken quite a long time on this model because it's frontier and has some new capabilities and it's very capable, as you can see from the benchmarks. And as Josh said, we make sure to not over-index internally on those benchmarks. They're just a proxy for overall performance, and that's why we care about them across the board. And then ultimately how our users experience them. But we spent a lot of time on testing, safety testing, all the different dimensions with the safety institutes and also external testers that we work with as well as, of course, doing a ton of internal testing. So I would say this is our most thoroughly tested model so far.
So starting first with some of the market trends, I'll spend a little bit of time in terms of the market trends because I know that you guys are all, thinking about these things. I would say that the rate and pace of change in AI is certainly beyond anything that I've seen, in my sort of tech history. A super intense speed and pace that you're seeing, just massive infrastructure build out. And, what do I mean by that? I mean, when we talk to all of our largest customers, we've actually seen this because we're always talking to our customers. And if I asked them last year, they might have said, hey, Lisa, we're investing right now, but we believe it'll level off, as the compute comes on board. And if you ask them today, what they would say is, no, it's actually not going to level off. We need to accelerate. We need to put more AI infrastructure in place because there's a real belief that AI compute really equates to intelligence. So if you have the chance, if you have the balance sheet, if you have the capability to put on more compute, you're going to do it because it's going to give you incremental advantage versus your competition. So it's really, I would say, an insatiable demand for AI compute, which is kind of interesting. There's obviously lots of work on power and ensuring that you get the full power and data center build out ready for that. We're also seeing that it is really too early to talk about, the winners and losers. There are lots and lots of models out there. I think the number of models is growing. In addition to the foundational model companies, which most people spend time on, there are lots of the next layer of companies that are helping enterprises really use AI in terms of, fine-tuning and other services that you add to it. And I think that's going to become more important. And then probably one of the trends that you guys have asked us about from time to time is what happens to the CPU market when you have AI accelerators growing so fast. And I would say, up until this year, there was a little bit of a thesis that, somehow GPUs would take a lot of the CPU workloads. I think what we have seen is that is not true. We've actually seen, the opposite be true. As we've gone through, as more AI has deployed from let's call it the models are out there, and as people are using AI in enterprises, we're actually seeing that the CPU demand is accelerating. And Dan McNamara is going to talk a lot about why we think that's happening, what we see, and it's now a consistent trend that we're seeing with multiple large customers, as well as both on the cloud side as well as the enterprise side. So I think it's a great thing. I think it makes sense, right? AI is driving new intelligence, new capability. As you have more agents out there, those agents have to work on something, and they're working on things that require more general purpose compute. We are seeing inferencing growing faster than training. I think that's something that we all kind of expected, but we're starting to see that now. The enterprise class solutions are also starting, I would still say, relatively early in the adoption curve, but there's a lot of interest and experimentation there. And then clearly, sovereign AI and nation scale deployments is an area where we continue to see, every country wants to have control of their own AI compute, and they want to be able to select how they deploy that. And this is one of the key trends that's also accelerating the TAM growth overall. And then, as you go beyond the cloud, I think we will see more AI, whether you're talking about at the edge or in PCs, as this is a way where new experiences are coming in. This is also still early in the cycle, so I would say this would be in the latter part of the growth for our long-range plan. But it is certainly an area that we think is interesting. So when you put all that together, and we talk about what market sizes are, it's always hard to call what a TAM is. When we first started talking about the AI TAM, I think we started at 300 billion, and then we updated it to 400, and then 500. And I think many of you said, well, that seems too high, Lisa. Why would you think that those numbers should be so high? It turns out that we were probably closer to right than wrong in terms of just the acceleration of AI spend. And that really came from, I would say, lots of discussion with lots of customers in terms of how they saw their computing needs frame out. So when we look at the market now, what we decided to do is a couple things. One is extend our range from really over the next 5 years, so 2030 TAM. And also think about it as a more inclusive TAM to not only include accelerators, which is very important, but also include CPUs and some of the networking content that we add to. So, our current perspective is we're talking about a TAM that is greater than $1 trillion by 2030. We've seen, if I look at our previous forecast at greater than 500 for 2028, we're seeing that number come up significantly. And then we expect that, there will be extensions of that growth rate going into 29 and 30. So it's an exciting market. There's no question. Data center is, the largest growth opportunity out there, and one that AMD is very, very well positioned for. So that kind of sets the stage of where we're choosing to invest going forward. And that translates into, let's call it a growth rate of, over 80% AI revenue CAGR over the next 3 to 5 years. So when we talk about financial model today, we're going to frame it over the next 3 to 5 years. And so this is, kind of what we see as our potential, given the customer traction, both with the announced customers as well as customers that are currently working very closely with us. Now, as exciting as the data center AI, revenue opportunity is for us, the other message that we want to leave you with today is every other part of our business is firing on all cylinders. And that's actually a very nice place to be. Some of the other, key targets that we're going to talk about today are areas where we think we have the ability to grow significantly ahead of the market dynamics. So on the server side, Dan McNamara is going to show you, sitting currently at approximately 40% share, we have a clear path to over 50% revenue share of the server market over a larger TAM over the next 3 to 5 years. Jack will talk about our client revenue market share. We're sitting, let's call it, in the high 20s right now. Again, a clear path to over 40% client revenue market share in this 3 to 5 year time frame. And then Salil will talk about what we see in the embedded market. Again, the opportunity to grow significantly ahead of the market to over 70% of the embedded adaptive revenue market share over the next 3 to 5 years. So I think all of these are really exciting targets. I think each of the businesses will, really go through their strategy, their product roadmaps, and why they see a clear line of sight to this. At the AMD level, I want to give you some ideas of how we think about revenue growth at the AMD level. So at the AMD level, what we would say is we expect to really inflect in overall revenue growth over the next 3 to 5 years. We've done very well over the last few years, growing over 20%, but we really see the opportunity to now take the overall company, at a scale of, let's call it a baseline in 2025 of $34 billion to grow at over 35% CAGR at the total company level. And that's broken up into, the data center business growing, well ahead of the market at over 60% CAGR. And the core businesses, that's client and embedded, growing also well ahead of the market at over 10% CAGR. So that kind of gives you a flavor of the type of growth that we're talking about. It's an exciting growth trajectory that we have.
When you say that data center growth will top 60% over the next 3 to 5 years, I referenced the crystal ball. How do you get the confidence, Lisa, to look that far out, especially when the technology sometimes that's rolling off the assembly lines right now is obsolete by the time it gets put into some of these data centers?
Well, we are absolutely moving at an incredible pace, Liz. The entire AI industry has recognized that, computing capability, computing chips are actually equating to intelligence. In other words, the more compute you have, the more intelligent you are, the more you can get from your business in terms of productivity. And that's the attraction in having the latest and greatest and ensuring that we get those installed as fast as possible. On our side, Liz, we've been accelerating our roadmap. So very excited. If I can talk a little bit about our chips, we're currently in production with the MI350 family, but we have this big step up with our next generation chips, our MI400 family, and that's recently we've announced a number of customers who are very excited about it. We had a large partnership with OpenAI that we announced, a partnership with Oracle, a partnership with Meta and the Department of Energy. So all of this is because we're seeing that these partnerships can really put 1 + 1 is greater than 3 when you put hardware, software, applications together.
Are you confident enough to say that the MI400 is enough to, well, not kill the Blackwell by NVIDIA, but to maim them a little bit? Draw a little bit of blood?
I am very confident that the MI400 series and our family of chips is extremely competitive. We're going to come out with the capability to really have, what our customers want is great technology with benefits in total cost of ownership, because as you're thinking about these data centers, if we can reduce the cost of AI for the average user, that's a great thing, which means that you will have more users going forward. And the way you do that is with the right technology, with the right performance.
You know, we love to kind of open a window and explain a little bit to our viewers who are brilliant, but they might not be totally knowledgeable in all of this. You have the Helios rack system. So, folks, this is a double-wide server rack system that you say will future-proof. And this goes back to what I was saying. Stuff gets obsolete really, really quickly, and it costs a lot to replace with the brand new chip. And first it's the MI400, and then it's the MI500, or the Blackwell versus the Rubin. So how can you guarantee that it's future-proof?
Well, first of all, I'm really impressed, Liz, that you did your research on Helios. What we look at is what do we think technology is going to do over the next 3 to 5 years? And how do we ensure that if you make an investment with AMD tech, that it will really withstand, sort of that whole return on investment cycle? So yes, we looked at, our next generation, Helios racks, as you talked about them, are, very much designed so that they give you incredible AI performance and total cost of ownership. And they also have the ability to be upgradable when you think about, different chips that you
versus
need in the
totally
future.
Replaced.
That's right.
You don't need to replace it.
That's exactly right.
You mentioned your big customers, OpenAI, Meta, Oracle, the U.S. government. Those are your big ones. Now, at your Investor Day, you didn't unveil any new names of partners, but at a time when investors are starting to look a little more critically at the spending, concentrated spending from a few gigantic names, why not right here say some of the new customers who might be smaller but are just as valid?
Well, let me say a couple of things about this, Liz, because I think this is an important thing for people to understand. What we have today is we have tremendous demand from AI from the largest hyperscalers, that's for sure. And you've seen that in all of their earnings and what they're reporting in terms of increasing their CapEx. They're doing that for a reason. They're doing that because they're seeing the productivity benefits. They're seeing that when you have more computing capability, you can service more users. And so that's generally a very, very good thing. Now, in terms of our strategic partners and customers, we're extremely happy with the broad set of partners that we have. And yes, we do also look at a whole host of new AI native and AI startups as well as they think about what's next. So from a standpoint of overall customers, Liz, I would say that right now, the excitement is really high around getting more AI infrastructure in there. We're very excited about our roadmap. I think the excitement is, not just having a OpenAI talking about multi-gigawatts with AMD, but we have multiple customers that are in that same, type of large scale that are very interested in ramping with us.
OpenAI, that deal, we last spoke, you had struck a gigantic deal to provide 6 gigawatts worth of compute power to OpenAI over the next several years in exchange for the option, if it hits certain targets, for OpenAI to own 10% of AMD. More than a few rivals were saying, why would AMD do that? Why would you give away 10% of the company? You're not doing it unless they hit certain metrics. But, with a couple of weeks in the rearview mirror, because this was just last month, what are the chances that OpenAI will own 10% of AMD?
Well, I think what we've seen is OpenAI is an incredible company in terms of the innovation that they have. Actually, Greg Brockman was here with me, and we talked about the potential of our partnership. I think 6 gigawatts of compute is massive. It's an important...
For people who don't know, 1 gigawatt will power about 750,000 American homes, right?
It's massive.
So 6.
It's massive. And look, I look at it as a wonderful thing. Like, we want to be partnered with the leaders in the industry, and we're betting on success. When we talk about, one of, some of the targets that we talked about yesterday were, growing our data center AI business by 80% compound annual growth rate over the next 3 to 5 years. Those are significant growth rates because we see the AI capabilities that come out there. And when I look at this, I look at it as, this is a case where you want partners where 1 + 1 is greater than 3. And we want strategic alignment. We want to ensure that not only do we work together now, but we work together generation after generation, because that's how you generate real value.
I'm glad you mentioned partners. Another partner, Taiwan Semiconductor. They are the ones who manufacture your brilliant designs and your team's brilliant designs. However, you just announced some very impressive margins that you expect to have for some of this. Well, Taiwan Semi just announced that they are going to raise prices on some of the highest end chip production. Would you ever consider? Intel is a touchy name here because way back in the past, AMD and Intel, AMD sued Intel successfully for monopolistic behavior. But would you ever look at Intel's foundry business, their similar business to Taiwan Semi, and say, you know what, I'll move some of my manufacturing business to Intel's manufacturing business? I know you don't want to fund a rival, but in some ways, would that make sense? Have you looked into that? Have you considered it?
Well, we're always considering manufacturing options, Liz. Taiwan Semiconductor, TSMC, has been a fabulous partner. When I think about their advanced technologies, we've really worked closely together. What has been super important is for us to get a U.S. manufacturing footprint. That continues to be a real priority for us.
Intel?
So TSMC in Arizona has done a fantastic job. We're actually running there in production today, and we're continuing to move more. And look, I would never say never. I mean, the way we should think about this is we want to have a strong U.S. manufacturing footprint. We want to have multiple sources. Those are all good things. And we also need to ensure that technologies are competitive from all kinds of the overall performance, overall pricing, all those kinds of things. But the main thing is we're reliant on the entire ecosystem to grow together. So when we talk about $1 trillion data center total addressable market, we need to ensure there's enough advanced silicon. We need to ensure there's enough memory. We need to ensure there's enough data center power. We need to ensure all of those things. And so that's part of what we do is really look at the entire ecosystem and how it scales together.
Well, from President Biden's effort with the CHIPS Act to bring manufacturing of these crucial elements to the United States to what President Trump is doing, I have to ask you about your China business. We've spoken to Jensen Huang of NVIDIA, who says zero. He has zero China business right now. How about you? Because right now, the president does not want the highest end chips going to China. China, front page of the Wall Street Journal's business section today, they said that, China is really facing a shortage of these chips. They're trying to do workarounds. Do you have any China customers right now?
So first, I'd like to say, I think the collaboration with this administration to ensure that the U.S. stays as the leader in AI has been really, really appreciated. I know that, I appreciate it, my peers appreciate it, because it's a very open dialogue. At the end of the day, we want to lead, and leading is very important. I think there's also a view that we want to ensure that the world is using U.S. technology as much as possible, and that's part of what leadership means. So as it relates to China, we just reported our third quarter earnings and gave our fourth quarter guidance, and we said we are not including China revenue today because it is a very dynamic situation. But we're hopeful. When I say we're not including China revenue, that's China AI revenue. We do have lots of other revenue in China, and China continues to be an important market for us, but we want to do it in concert with the administration and the export control policies.
Lisa, thank you. It's been a busy couple of days for the investor conference, and it's great to have you here. We hope you'll continue to speak to our viewers about this exciting time.
Thank you so much for having me.
You bet.